Let's move on, because the Prime Minister says he expects a general election in the second half of the year. And he'll be meeting members of the public in the North West today.
Yes, so this comes as Labour released this poster this morning attacking the Tories on tax. Rishi Sunak's political opponents have also accused him of squatting in Downing Street after he downplayed the prospects of holding a general election in the spring. But let's go live to our political editor, Christopher Hope, who has been sitting down with the Shadow Chancellor. Christopher, what's Rachel Reeves been saying today?
Well, she's here in Wellingborough, Tom, because of the expected by-election caused by the Peter Bone being found to have broken Commons rules, and then local people here voting for a recall by-election. So it's gearing up here for the first big test of a Conservative safe seat, 19,000 majority. The by-election expected, not called yet, but expected to be late next month, maybe early March. Over my shoulder, Tom and Emily, can you see that shop there?
Yeah.
Rishi's Raw Deals. Someone walked past, had no idea what they were selling. They weren't quite clear what it was about. In fact, that's a kind of advertising shop showing Rishi Sunak with a kind of light on his, a spark of light on his teeth there, like a salesman. Rishi's Raw Deals, very clear here. There's a first kind of swipe, I think, at the PM personally by Labour. They're clearly going to try and weaponise feelings about the Tory party, focusing on the leader, Rishi Sunak, to try and win this by-election when it's held. But here, Rachel Reeves, Shadow Chancellor, is on a visit here. And earlier for GB News, I sat down with her for this exclusive interview. Rachel Reeves, great to be here in Wellingborough with you and for GB News. Are you a tax cutter?
My instinct is that taxes on working people should be lower than they are today. We've had 25 Tory tax rises in this Parliament, and this year an average working family is going to be paying £1,200 more in tax. That doesn't sit comfortably with me. I would like taxes on working people to be lower. But this is one thing I'm not going to do. I'm not going to make any unfunded commitments to reduce tax, because that's what Liz Truss and the Conservatives did just over a year ago, and that ended up pushing up mortgage rates, which meant that working people are worse off, not better off as a result.
But will Labour bring down tax as a proportion of GDP by the end of your first term in government?
It's not only is it a record level, it's also forecast to go up every single year of the forecast period. And again, I'm not comfortable with that. I would like taxes on working people to be lower. I'd like people to have more of their own money in their pockets to spend in the way that they choose. But to be able to do that in a way that's affordable, sustainable and fair, you've got to grow the economy. And that's why all of my plans, all of Keir's plans, are focused on getting that economic growth. Because if we can grow our economy, we can keep taxes down, we can improve living standards and have the money that we need to invest in our public services. And that's why growth is the #1 priority for an incoming Labour government.
So you won't say you'll bring down the overall burden by the end of the Parliament?
I want to bring down taxes on working people, but if you make unfunded commitments to cut taxes, you end up making things worse for working families. The Conservatives promised a whole range of tax cuts. It crashed the economy, pushed up mortgage rates and has left working people worse off. I will never play fast and loose with the public finances, because when you do so, you put family finances at risk.
So tax cuts when growth happens, does that mean no tax cuts for the first 2 years of Labour government?
Well, look, we've got a comprehensive plan to grow the economy, an industrial strategy that we have put together with business, reforms to our planning system to get Britain building again. If we can do those things, if we can unlock the private investment that has fallen over the years of Conservative government, then we can turn around our economy and we can improve living standards and ensure that working people have got more of their own money in their pockets.
When you look at your personal tax bill, does it make you wince?
What makes me wince is when I look at my bank statement and I find that the money coming in is increasingly short of the money going out, whether it's the mortgage or the gas and electricity bills, the weekly shop. All of the money that all of us spend over Christmas is putting a huge toll on family finances, and I think very few people are not feeling the effects of that today.
Your plans are to spend £28 billion a year on net zero measures. When will you hit that target? By 2030 or before, in 2028?
Well, the government are already spending about £10 billion a year on things like electric vehicles, carbon capture and storage, home insulation. And we want to turbocharge that because there is a huge opportunity and a global race on to secure the jobs and the investment in the industries of the future. But also, this government ended up paying a load of money to subsidise people's energy bills because we weren't doing enough to invest in that homegrown energy here in Britain, and we found ourselves over-reliant on Russia and other dictators for our basic energy needs. So we've got a commitment to get to clean power, to invest alongside business in these industries of the future. But I've also been really clear that our fiscal rules come first and they are non-negotiable. We will pay for day-to-day spending through tax receipts and we will get debt down as our share of the economy, and then only subject to that will we be able to invest in those things that can improve our growth and improve our energy security.
You may not get there by 2030.
Well, look, I'm confident that we can do that, but I'm never going to do anything that puts our economy at risk. That's what the Conservatives have done. I will never do that.
Howard Davis, the chairman of NatWest, 39% owned by the taxpayer, says it's not that difficult to get on the housing ladder. Is he right?
I don't think those comments are in tune with the reality faced by millions of people in Britain. There are many people who do own their own home but are struggling with the higher mortgage costs. And there are many people who are struggling to get on the housing ladder because of higher interest rates, which were brought about because of Liz Truss and the Conservative Party's management of the economy. So I know that many, many people will find those remarks quite out of touch with the situation that they and their family face.
Should Howard Davis apologise for saying that?
Well, look, those are not comments that I would have made, and then certainly not in tune, I think, with the vast majority of people in the country.
On Luke Littner, he came second in the darts championship of the weekend. And HMRC says he'll be paying tax on his £200,000 winnings. Is that right? Are they gloating?
Look, I think it is right that people pay taxes on their income, but I really hope that in the years to come he earns many more hundreds of thousands of pounds by securing those titles. Amazing achievement at just 16. Just imagine what he can go on to achieve.
Rachel Reeves, there are reports that savers are taking money out of their accounts before Labour government. Are they right to be worried?
No. A Labour government is determined to grow the economy and to ensure that people have more of their own money in their pockets. And after 14 years of an economy that has flatlined, 25 Tory tax rises and public services that are on their knees, it's time for change in Britain.
Just a couple of final ones. On net migration, what level are you happy with? Because we're told repeatedly that the Treasury have been opposing attempts to bring down net migration by the Home Office.
I don't think that the current levels are acceptable, and government need to do more to be training up people who are working here in Britain already, and need to crack down on the criminal gangs that are responsible for those channel crossings.
So a level you're happy with?
I'm not going to put arbitrary. I'm not going to put arbitrary numbers on it, but we need to bring those levels down.
On the election, the PM says he's not planning for an election before the summer. Is Labour planning for a spring election?
Well, I saw yesterday that the Prime Minister's bottling it. We say bring it on. It's time for the people to decide in a general election.
You're preparing for a spring one?
We'd be happy to have an election whenever the Prime Minister calls it, and the sooner the better.
Rachel Reeves, thank you for joining us today in Wellingborough. Thank you.
Thank you.
There we are. The sooner the better. Rachel Reeves wants that general election. Of course, they can't guarantee there's not one until after the middle of June or the end of June this year, but it's likely to be in the autumn.
Thank you very much indeed, Christopher Hope, our political editor, bringing us that exclusive sit-down interview with the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. Interesting, absolutely no commitment to tax cuts. Also admitting, perhaps, that she runs a personal deficit in her own finances.
She did
we'll
say
let
that more was going out of her bank account than was coming in, but maybe that was just a plea for MPs to be paid more, I don't know.
Or for tax cuts that she won't commit to. But there you go.
Well, let's get some reaction now. Joining us is Greg Hands, the Minister of State for Trade. Greg, thank you for making the time for us this afternoon. The Labour Party is taking the fight to you today. They're attacking the Conservative Party for something that has undeniably happened. The tax burden has risen on your watch.
Well, we had to, obviously after the pandemic, the government, with things like the furlough scheme, rightly supported the economy, and it took a while to repay some of that. But importantly now, in fact, from tomorrow, we're giving people a tax reduction of 2p in the pound on national insurance. That's about £400 for the average worker each year. You mentioned Labour, but it's Labour who are committed to tax rises because they've got an extra £28 billion a year, each year, of borrowing coming on, which could only logically be funded by tax rises as they've ruled out borrowing more. So it's the Conservatives who are the low tax party, cutting taxes, and Labour who are committed to increasing them.
But it's true, Greg, that this cut in national insurance, welcome as it is to working people, isn't enough to make up for income tax thresholds being frozen for so long.
Well, look, as I mentioned, from the pandemic, that we did have to put more money into the economy, and that was the right thing to do. I think the British people recognise those were the right decisions. But now we're reducing tax, which is again the right thing to do. Rishi Sunak said the priority last year was to halve inflation and then to look at tax cuts. That's exactly what we're doing now. We're delivering the average worker a £400 tax cut from tomorrow. And Labour are committed, it would seem, to raising taxes back up again even higher. So I think that is clear blue water between a low-tax Conservative Party and a Labour Party committed to higher taxes.
Of course, what the Labour Party would say is that they're not going to spend £28 billion extra in year one. Their pledge seems to have shifted in recent days. It's quite hard to understand exactly what their pledge is today, but they seem to be saying that that is an ambition they might work up to if the economic situation allows, and are now saying that they wouldn't automatically spend £28 billion extra in year one at least.
Well, it isn't really for me to clarify what the Labour pledge is, if you don't mind me saying so. But it is clear from what Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have both said in the last couple of days, is that that 28 billion still stands in one form or another. I think they've also said they ruled out borrowing more, which can only mean that the money would come from extra taxes. Just as the Conservatives are reducing people's taxes, Labour would appear to be committed to raising taxes, and that is the wrong thing to do at a time when you've rightly pointed out taxes have been higher than we would like them to have been, but now is the time to be reducing taxes under the Conservatives, not raising them under Labour.
Is the ambiguity here not that the Labour Party is saying they won't spend that money unless they can fit it within similar fiscal rules, really, to those fiscal rules that this current government is operating under? Might it actually be the situation that whoever we elect after the next general election will basically be operating under the same fiscal framework, and taxes will be a lot higher than they were whoever we elect? They'll be a lot higher than they were at the start of last decade. They'll even be higher than they were under Tony Blair.
Well, I disagree with that. I don't think it will be the same set of policies. As I said, the Conservatives are committed to bringing down taxes. From tomorrow, the average family will get a £400 reduction in their tax bill each year, the average worker, I should say, due to the 2 pence in the pound national insurance reduction. And Labour in the last 48 hours have said they're committed to their £28 billion borrowing plan, which will inevitably have to increase taxes. So I think there's a big difference between what we, the Conservatives, are offering, lower taxes, and Labour, on the other hand, offering higher taxes.
Greg, what should the priority be then if you win the next election? Where should the priority lie in terms of cutting taxes? We've got a small cut to national insurance, but there's been a lot of talk at the top about inheritance tax being scrapped. Is that a priority in your view?
Well, I think it wouldn't be the right time now to lay out what might be in the manifesto later this year. I think what we can say is that Conservatives are committed to lower taxes. Exactly how that's delivered, I would favour seeing a tax cut, further tax cuts. There's already a big one coming in tomorrow, £400 for the average worker. I would like to see more tax cuts for working people coming later this year. That, I think, is what the priority should be. But I think that'll be up to the Chancellor to lay out in his budget on the 6th of March, and also the election manifesto that we would expect later this year.
Now, the Conservative government has somehow avoided recession over 2023 for the United Kingdom, despite what many predicted would be the case. However, growth has not been particularly high. Avoiding recession, yes, but we're nowhere near countries like the United States when it comes to our growth prospects. What actually is the sort of plan, other than tax, which is often a very small part of the puzzle? What is the plan to get the economy going? The Labour Party would say they're committed to planning reform.
Well, look, I don't think Labour have delivered anything in terms of any real detail on their plans. I think it's a part of your job, which I think Christopher Hope did quite well earlier, to sort of hold them to account and to ask them what their plans really are. But what we are committed to do is make sure that the economy gets moving. We're putting a lot more money into education. You mentioned the United States, but the UK does have higher growth rates than any European member of the G7. So that's Germany, France, Italy. I think our growth rate is projected by the IMF to be higher than any major European economy over the next few years. You know, we want it to be higher. We recognise those growth rates aren't what we would like them to be. We'd like them to be higher, but we are outperforming our sort of European peer group, if you like. And I think we've laid out how we will get there by investing in the skills of tomorrow, the technologies of tomorrow, looking forward, doing trade deals. That's my job as trade minister, is to get those trade deals done. We're negotiating at the moment with India, with the Gulf Cooperation Council. We're joining the CPTPP free trade area. Now, these are big opportunities, big areas for the UK to take advantage of our freedoms to be able to do these kind of trade deals. So it's those kind of areas that we're looking to seek economic growth in.
OK, thank you very much indeed for your time. Appreciate it. Greg Hands, MP, Minister of State for Trade.